Hey, it's me, Chris Niccolls, and look at these f***ing insane lenses. They have such weird zoom ranges. Why would you ever buy such a weirdo lens? You know, photography's been largely defined by very traditional lens focal ranges, and we actually just did a video on the holy trinity of lenses, basically something like a 16-35, a 24-70, and a 70-200. But is there merit to breaking out of those very rigid traditional focal ranges? I think so, and I'm going to show you today. And for this video, we're only going to be talking about lenses that we've really played with ourselves and that are available today on the market so that you can go and get them right away. This is PetaPixel. Let's get to it. I guarantee you, after watching today's video, you are going to be ready to let that freak flag fly. How do you do that? Well, you want to get rid of that boring 70-200. You want to get rid of that pedestrian 24-70. You're going to go to keh.com. It's going to be super easy. You can just go for an online quote. You know exactly what you're going to get for all that boring old glass. And then they're going to have these weird formulas there. And you can see what condition they're in, what accessories come with them. You'll even get a 10% trade-in bonus for your old gear towards this new gear. So go ahead and get weird, get freaky with keh.com. They are PetaPixel's official pre-owned camera gear partner. Okay, so let's start off our conversation with the king of the weirdo lenses. This is the one that really made me fall in love with strange focal lengths. This is the Tamron full frame 35-150 f2-2.8. It is sharp, it is optically well corrected, maybe a little bit big. It's a little bit expensive for a Tamron, but still a very good bargain compared to the OEM lenses. And this is so versatile. I mean, I can go out for just the day with this one lens, cover a lot of stuff with good reach, but couple this with a 17-35 or 16-35 lens, and now you've got a whole range covered with only two lenses. You don't have to carry that holy trinity around. And that's why this is such a great lens for any event photographer. If I was shooting a wedding, for example, this would be it. It gives me that nice shallow depth of field look, whether I'm at 35 or 150 millimeters, and it's just beautiful for professional results. I would love to see the other companies like Canon, Nikon rip this lens off, blatantly rip it off like Samyang did. I mean, they did that. It's a great move. So while we're on the topic of Tamron, let's take a look at this lens, which I will grant you isn't that strange a departure from the norm. This is the Tamron 50-300 f4.5 to 6.3, and it is very similar to the very ubiquitous 70-300 millimeter kit lens that almost everybody has. But it does give you that little extra push into the normal range, and this does have some merit, because you can then couple this with an ultra-wide lens that covers 16-35, or companies like Tamron make the 20-40 or the 17-50. And if you get something like that, you basically have from ultra-wide to 300 millimeters covered with just the two lenses. There is some convenience there. You can even get the Tamron 50-400, very similar kind of thing, and get even more reach. That being said, although it is compact, it is very slow. It is more of an entry-level lens. I could see somebody maybe wanting to use this kit for travel photography, you know, maybe the occasional wildlife shot, although again, the slower aperture is not great for a lot of that. Do I think that other manufacturers jump on board and increase the range of their telephoto lenses like this? I don't know, probably not. I feel like if I want a lens for maximum convenience and I'm okay with the slower aperture, I just prefer to have something that starts from like 28 and goes to 300 or 400 and have all of that convenience in just one lens. Okay, so the next lens on the docket is the Sigma 28-45 f1.8. Weird lenses don't always have to have incredibly huge zoom ranges. Sometimes it can have a very limited range, but do that range really well. I mean, first off, this is a bright f1.8 aperture all the way through. This lens is very well corrected for flare, and actually really nice look to the bokeh for shallow depth of field shots. It could be a little bit sharper wide open, but where this lens really shines is the versatility, not only for just a nice walk around wide angle, but absolutely for video applications. This is a super popular gimbal lens. The sharpness is ideal for 4K video. A lot of video users are clamoring for this lens, and that's actually why Sigma is making this same range as a cinema-specific lens. For photography, yeah, it does kind of cover a bunch of primes in one lens, although to be fair, I just found myself wanting just to use primes. But I do think that there's some merit for other companies to make a similar kind of lens, not only for gimbal work and video work, but for people who might just want the convenience of a small range, but with a bright aperture that does things very well. Now look, it's not just third-party manufacturers making these strange lenses, because the original manufacturers are also delving into the world of unique formulas. This is the Canon L series 100-300 f2.8. Now I know what you're thinking. Chris, 100 to 300, that's not a strange focal length, and it's not, but it's very rare when you couple it with an f2.8 aperture. One of the only closest lenses I can think of is the Sigma 120 to 300 f2.8 sport lens, and that was a beautiful lens for DSLRs. Very sharp, very good, but also humongous. What's beautiful about this is just actually how compact and how convenient it is. Most Canon sports photographers are going to have something like maybe a 70 to 200 2.8, maybe a 300 2.8, maybe even something beyond that. But what this does is cover all your bases with one lens. The other nice thing is, what would you couple it with? I mean, classically 24 to 105 lenses really aid the versatility of this, but they're usually f4. What makes this so good now is that Canon have also made a 24 to 105 f2.8. Now you can have just these two lenses, have sharp optics with a 2.8 aperture all the way through. And if you're a professional photographer with two bodies and you just have a 24 to 105 on one, the 100 to 300 on the other, you could just stroll down to the saloon with your 2.6 guns, one in each holster, just bam, 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 laying waste to the competition. I think that'd be a fantastic way to go for the other manufacturers. So let's see Nikon, let's see Sony, let's see Panasonic come out with some of these very big ranges with fast f2.8 apertures that are optically fantastic. That I think would be very beneficial. Micro Four Thirds, the realm of interesting lens designs for many, many years now. This actually comes to mind. This is the OM System Olympus 8 to 25 Mzuiko f4 all the way through. And you know what's great about Micro Four Thirds is you can have these interesting ranges but still keep the lenses fairly small. This is a fantastic full frame equivalent of 16 to 50 millimeters. And we are starting to see this same range in the full frame realm because it is very versatile. This is a great walk around lens. This is a great go from ultra wide landscape to all of your normal stuff. Even some portraiture at that 50 millimeter full frame equivalent can be useful. And so I think this is a great walk around travel lens or street photography lens when you want to stay compact, when you want to stay discreet, but still have that versatility. Now, if I'm going to say, should other manufacturers start doing similar lenses? Yeah, they actually already are. I mean, we've talked about Tamron doing things like their 17 to 50, and one of my favorite lenses I'm going to talk about today also kind of goes into this realm. I'd like to see OM System make something that carries off that 25 millimeters going a little bit higher, but this is something that Panasonic does very well. They actually make a beautiful 10 to 25 millimeter f1.7, and then they make our next lens that we're going to talk about. Because our next lens is actually one of Jordan's favorites. In fact, here, just give me one sec. I need it here for the test. Here, Jordan, sorry. Okay, so there we are. That's the Panasonic 25 to 50 f1.7, and Jordan is now using his other favorite weird lens, the 10 to 25 f1.7. So these are going to be a little bit bigger and a little bit bulkier, but they give you that nice bright f1.7 look and fairly shallow depth of field. And this is where these cool focal ranges come into play. With these two lenses, Jordan can cover a really nice range from 20 millimeters to 100 millimeters, all at f1.7, and they're actually really good for video because they've got nice manual focus clutches and they're breathing corrected. Now, what is unique about this 25 to 50 millimeter lens is that it covers a range that you don't normally cover. So the full frame equivalent of 50 to 100 goes from normal portrait ranges all the way to your classic 100 millimeter portrait range, and it does it with a fairly bright aperture. And I think it's important to point out that Jordan loves working in this range. This is one of his favorite things, and he finds this range very convenient. Just the ability to go from group shots to single portrait shots, it's really nice. I do personally prefer something with a little bit of a brighter aperture if I'm going to shoot portraits. I'd want something to give me the option with shallower depth of field, and it seems like the only thing that manufacturers make right now are things like 35 to 150s or 24 to 105 2.8s, and those certainly give me the aperture I'm looking for, but they're big, they're heavy, they're bulky. Nobody really makes a nice, compact, dedicated portrait range in that smaller zoom that could still give us a bright aperture, and I think that's a market that is untapped. And this brings us to my favorite lens on the list, possibly one of my favorite lenses of all time, but I want to give you guys context. So this is the Sony 20-70G f4. It's very compact and it covers a very useful range. Not many other people have attempted to make something like this. The only one that really comes close is the Panasonic 20-60, but that does have a floating aperture. This has the fixed f4. It's a little bit brighter when you go into those telephoto ranges. I could see for professional work that you would want something a little bit brighter. That's where like the Tamron 35 to 150 shines, but it is a big lens you have to carry around. And for me and the photography that I do, I'm not often requiring the shallowest of depth of field or to have a huge range. For me, there's something really romantic about walking around with just one lens that can do a lot for you. And that's where I think the beauty of this lies. It's super versatile. I get that ultra wide range when I want to shoot landscapes. I get that 70mm if I want to do some impromptu portraits. And the f4 aperture gives me just enough light that can make most situations work on a modern mirrorless body. But beyond that, it's incredibly compact and it's actually very sharp, very resistant to flare, and has nice bokeh. I was pretty blown away with just how well they could make a lens like this, even though it's a jack of all trades. Do I think other manufacturers jump on board and make a very similar lens? Absolutely. I'm surprised they haven't. I'd even be fine with it being slightly larger and slightly brighter. There's variations you can make on this, but having something from 20 to 70 for me would be my ideal do-it-all lens. So we've given you guys a nice array of some very strange and very interesting lenses, but we're only scratching the surface. I mean, there's so many more beyond this. How long do you want this episode to be? But I think the most important thing to remember here is that everybody's different. Everybody has very different needs for what they like and don't like, ranges that they use more often and ranges that they tend to ignore. And so we get these lenses that buck the trend and that give people a different perspective for their creative work that they might more fully appreciate. These lenses might make compromises in certain ways that you're willing to live with and give you strengths in others. And that's what's so beautiful about these strange, freaky deaky lenses. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if there's anything that you want to mention in the comments below about weird lenses that you've used in the past or weird lenses that you would like to see in the future, I'd love to hear that. Check out the PetaPixel podcast as well. You can listen to it on this exact same channel or all your favorite podcasting apps. Just search for PetaPixel Podcast. And I also want to put something by you. If you guys get a PetaPixel membership, it's only $3 a month or $30 a year, and that'll actually get you ads-free enjoyment of PetaPixel.com. All the articles, everything on there, no ads to worry about. But on top of that, you'll also get a 25% discount off of the merch store, and we've just updated the merch store with new products. There's lots of good stuff coming, so you'll definitely get that money back. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.